Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this really sweet little Nemo from the movie Finding Nemo and the new movie that's coming out, Finding Dory. This is part 1 where I will show you how to make the body, and then in the second video I'll add the link to that. I show you how to make the rest of the fins. So this one that I'm holding is the first one that I made. And then this one here is the one I made in the tutorial. So they're actually identical. And you can see from the side here, he has this little tail fin, and he has quite a lot of fins. He has the top and the bottom. He has this little small lucky fin, the regular fin, and then they have these two that hang down on the bottom. So I had made Dory from Finding Dory and Finding Nemo. So I thought it was only fitting to make a Nemo as well. To make your Nemo, you're going to need a hook of some sort. So I'm using the Rainbow Loom metal hook, but you can use a crochet hook or whatever you have on hand. You'll need some type of stuffing, so I'm using polyfil. Now to get my magic ring started, I'm going to use a twist tie. And if you have the Loomiloom, you can use that. You would want the one that has the 5 fins. So both of those tools are optional, but I do find them very helpful. And you're going to need a few clips or stitch markers. And then for my eyes, I'm using these 9mm safety eyes. These are called animal eyes and they're made by Daris. So you can probably find those at your local craft store or online. Now if you didn't want to use these eyes, you can just use beads or buttons, or you could also use black rubber bands. And as far as my band counts for part 1, if I did my calculations correct, I used 316 orange, 137 black, and 174 white. I'm going to start by making a magic ring of 5, so for that I have my 6 orange rubber bands. So if you're using the twist tie, you just want to put that right next to your hook. You're going to take your first band and you're going to triple that. So just twist and put it back on 2 times. And you need to make sure it gets over your twist tie as well as your hook. Pull that about halfway up and then just bend it in half. And what that's doing is just holding those 3 loops together. So then one at a time, you're just going to pull through, get the other end back on, and pull one through the other. And then front to back, make sure you're going under all 3 loops. You're going to pull through the second one. This time you'll have 3 loops, one through the other 2. Back through. You have your third band. Fourth. And 5th. So then you can remove your twist tie. You want to take your clip or your stitch marker and just place it on the band that's around your hook. So you will have to take a second and try and even these out. And then if you count your stitches, and a stitch is the little sideways V on the outer edge of your magic ring, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, and number 5 is the one that's on your hook. You'll need 10 bands for row 2, and we're doing a pattern of 3 in the same stitch, 3, 1, 2, 1. So in that very first stitch, we're doing a total of 3 bands. So there's 1, back through the same stitch for the second, and then back through one more time. Same thing for the second stitch. We're going to do a total of 3 bands. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And in the next stitch, we're just doing 1 single. Next stitch, we have an increase of 2 bands. Make sure you're getting under both loops. So that's 1, 2, and then in the very last stitch where your clip is, it's going to be a single. And then I'm going to take my clip, move it to the band that's on my hook. So now our stitch count has increased to 10. So if you count your stitches around, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and number 10 is on your hook. In row 3, you're going to need 4 black and 6 orange. So the first 4 black are for the mouth, and they're going to be a different stitch called a back post single crochet. And then the orange, we're just going to follow the 1, 1, 2, 1, 1 pattern. So to do a back post single crochet, what you're going to do is go from the outside of the stitch. So you can see that our last stitch was right here. So I'm going to go to the next stitch over, but instead of going front to back, I'm going back to front. I'm just going to make sure I go under both loops. And then in the very next stitch over, I'm going to take my hook and push back out. So what that's going to do is make these 2 vertical loops pop up on your hook, and that's what's considered the post. So we're going to take our black band. I'm going to pull through everything since I'm changing color. That's what's known as a slip stitch, and then do one through the other. So we're going to do 4 of those. So you're going to go back down through this same stitch that you just came out. So pushing down through, back up the next, you'll see that post pop right up on your hook. And you're going to do 1 through the other 2, just like when you do a single crochet. Again, down through the same one, and back out through the next. You'll see that post. This is number 3. And then one more time for number 4. So now what I'm going to do is just hold this in my fingers, take my hook out, and I'm going to push from the inside out through that same stitch that the black is already in, and I'm just going to pull that through to the inside. And then I'll work in my next stitch over. So this is just the regular way here, doing a single crochet. Again, I'm going to pull through everything just to get that black off of my hook. So that's 1, 1 in the next, and then we have an increase, and then 2 more singles, and then that will get you back to where your clip is. So it may be a little unorthodox, but that was my best solution to come up with forming the mouth and the bottom of the nose. You'll need 18 orange bands for row 4. So we're doing 3, 2, 2, 3, and those are just going in the black inner loops. And then we have increase 1, increase, and 3. So you can see our back post single crochets, they really stick out. And what we're going to do is just go in the inner loop, the one that's closest to you. So just push right underneath that one loop, and we're going to do 3 single crochets into that same stitch. So that's 1, 2, and 3. The next one, just the inner loop. This time we're doing just 2. Next inner loop, we have 2. And then our last black inner loop here, we're going to do 3. So the reason that I'm doing these increases, and especially doing the 3s, is I want this to puff out, because if you look at Nemo, he has pretty chubby cheeks. And then if you look here, in the next stitch around, you can see that we did a slip stitch. So you have this one orange part that's more vertical. That's not actually the true stitch, it's the next one over. So we're going to go in that for our increase. So we have just the two. And then we have a single. Next one we have an increase. And then that should leave us with 3 stitches. And we're doing 1 single crochet into each. In row 5 you'll need 23 bands, and I'm not going to keep explaining how it's laid out every time, just because as the rows get longer and longer it's going to just take up more time. But you can see how it's laid out, and I have it written before each section. So we're starting with a single crochet, and then in that second stitch we're going to do a total of 3. So again, this is sort of around the side here, so we want these cheeks to really fill out. And then across the bottom here under the mouth, we're just going to be going in the outer loop for the next 5. So you can see your little sideways V for your stitch. You're just going to go into the middle of that V and just go under that outer loop. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're back to going under both loops, and we have another increase with 3. So that's 1, 2, and 3 in that same stitch. And now we have 5 singles. Let me just move these down here. So here's 1, and now in this next stitch it's going to have a little bit of a gap in it, and that's because of us doing that front post single crochet created a gap. So what I'm going to tell you to do is go under the stitch, but then also grab an orange loop. And so that way when you pull through, you're going to close up that gap. So you can see there. So we have 3 more singles here. And then we're doing an increase in the next, and it should line up if you look. This is going to be the bridge of the nose. It should always be lining up here. So we have our increase. And then you're going to end with 4 singles. For row 6 you'll need 27 bands. So the first 15 are single crochet. I just didn't want to lay them all out to take up that much space. So the first 15 here, I'm going to count out. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So now we should be getting around the top of the head, and this time we're going to do 3 into that next stitch. So we're done widening out the bottom. Now we're going to do a little bit of widening on the top here. And then we're going to do 3 singles. And then another increase with 3. And then we're going to end with 3 singles. So if you want to, you can start to try and shape the face a little bit. It might look kind of a mess, especially when you have the 3. Sometimes they want to buckle in, but you want the bottom jaw to be kind of sticking out. And then you want where we did the increases all in a row, where the nose is, if you want to pinch that together, and then also here from where the mouth is to your magic ring, you can kind of squeeze that down. We want the nose to be kind of wide here right above the mouth, and then narrow a little bit up into the face. You'll need 27 bands for row 7. Again, we're starting with 13 singles. I just have them in a pile. So I'm going to count all the 13. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And now with the next 5 stitches, we're going to do just the inner loop. So it's the one closest to you. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now that should bring us to the top of the head, and we're going to do 2 regular single crochets. So go under both of the loops. And then again for the next 5, we're doing just the inner loop. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that will leave you with 2. So these are going to be regular singles, so again, go under both loops. And then again, you can even the edges out here. In row 8, you'll need 29 bands. We're starting with 15 singles. So again, I just had them in a pile. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And then in that 16th stitch, we're doing an increase. And then we're going to do 5 singles. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have our next increase, and then 5 singles. So we're just really trying to get that top of the head to get a nice shape. We did those inner loops in the last row to try and shape around the eyes. Again, you can just even this out. In row 9, we're going to start to add some black. So you're going to need 27 of those and then 4 orange. So we're going to start with our 3 black. So the first thing we have to do is a slip stitch. So you just want the 2 black bands on your hook. So there's 2 black, 3. And now we're going to switch to orange. So again, we have to do another slip stitch. And we're going to do 4 of those. So that's 2, 3, 4. And then we're switching back to black. This time we're going to do 8. So slip stitch. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then we have our first increase. And then we're going to do 6 singles. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we have our next increase. And then that's going to leave us with 6 final black. So I don't know what it is about these black bands, but the last time that I refilled my black, every single one of the packs has these extra thick black bands. I don't understand. It seems like they're just a lot thicker than the other colors. And I think they're a little bit harder to work with. Just move that clip. In row 10, we're going to start to add some white. So you're going to need 25 of those, 2 black and 4 orange. So I'm starting with a white. Now if you look here in our previous row with the black, we had a slip stitch. So if you do a slip stitch, you have to be careful that this first little part that may look like a stitch, it's not a true stitch, so make sure you don't go in that. So if you look to the side, it's a little bit easier to see how this is all part of the same band. So you're just going to push through. You do need to do a slip stitch because we're going to change colors. So you have just the 2 white, and then in the next stitch over we're going to put a black. Again, you have to do a slip stitch since we're changing colors once again. And then under the next black stitch, once again, another slip stitch because we're changing to orange. So that was the first out of 4 orange. So here's 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going under an orange stitch, but we're switching to black. So again, do your slip stitch, and then once again, this was a slip stitch from the previous row, so ignore this first little black. And we have our 24 white, so you're doing a slip stitch to begin, and then the rest are white all the way back to the start. So hopefully everyone is able to follow along here okay. I know there's a lot of color changes that are going to happen, and we're doing quite a bit of increases and decreases. If you hear any noise in the background, my neighbor actually just started to mow his grass. That always seems to happen when I'm filming in the spring and summer. And also behind our development, they're putting a new development, so there's constantly construction noise and the beeping of equipment when it's backing up. So I apologize if any of that is coming through on the video. There's really not a whole lot I can do about that. So I'm just working my way down the opposite side here. So we're actually doing 2 rows of white. Couldn't decide if I was going to do 1 or 2, because if you look at pictures of Nemo, his black part is actually really skinny and the white part's fatter. And I tried to do different ways to make the black skinnier, but nothing really worked out without getting really overly complicated. So this is what I settled on. Last one was white. And just move the clip. In row 11, you'll need 26 white bands, 2 black and 3 orange. So we're starting in a slip stitch. Ignore the first little white part. We're doing a white band, so we don't have to do a slip stitch since we're already on white. And then slip stitch in the next. Ignore the first little black. We're doing a slip stitch with the black, so through everything. Again, ignore the first little part of the orange, go under the orange stitch, do another slip stitch. So that was 1, 2, and 3 orange. Now we're going under an orange stitch, but we're switching to black. So do your slip stitch. And then the next black one was a slip stitch, so ignore the first. We have our last 25 white, so do your slip stitch. Again, the next white was a slip stitch, ignore the first. And then for the rest of the way here, we should be in the clear. We're not having any more color changes or having to deal with any slip stitches. So I had tried many different rows and patterns to make the Nemo. It was actually very frustrating trying to get it to look like the shape of his face. So I'm sure it's not completely perfect, but I tried to get it as close as I could. I actually have several pages in my notebook where I changed and reworked things, so it's a whole lot of chicken scratch. I actually had kind of a hard time when I was going to make the tutorial at deciphering my own handwriting. Now with this last one, I did notice a little bit more of a gap here, so I'm going to go under the stitch, but I'm also going to grab a white loop as well and then pull through. So again, that's just going to close off that little gap. So if you do find as you're doing this, you have gaps of your own, you can just do that in any one of the stitches. Sometimes from making those slip stitches, you'll find a little bit more of a gap than usual. In row 12, you'll need 27 black and 4 orange. So we're going under a white stitch, and we're starting with 1 black. Do your slip stitch, and then you're going to go under black. Just ignore this first little part. Going to do a slip stitch with the orange. That was the first out of 4. So there's 2, 3, 4, and now under the black, Just be careful about the slip stitch. You're going to do a slip stitch. Next one was a white slip stitch in the previous row. And then the rest of the way around it's going to be all black. And again, you don't have to worry about any slip stitches or color changes. So this part should be pretty easy. So after this, we're going to do a couple rows of all orange. Last one. Now before I continue to build Nemo's body, I'm going to make and attach the eyes. So I need 10 white rubber bands for each one of the eyes, and then I'm using these 9mm safety eyes. So if you didn't have these, you could use beads or buttons, or you could just use black rubber bands. So I'm going to start by making a magic ring of 5, then do 3 in the next stitch and tie it off. So I'm going to triple my first band, and I'm not going to use a twist tie, I'll just show you how to do it without. So just twist and loop it back on twice so you have the 3 loops. And then you should have 5 bands. You're going to pull through the triple band, and through the other, and then from front to back just push those 3 loops. So this is 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then in the first stitch over, we're going to do 3 bands in that same stitch, because if you look at Nemo, his eyes aren't completely circular, at least the white part isn't. It's a little bit more off to one side. So that was 3 in the same stitch, and then I'm just going to go under my next stitch over, and I'm going to use this last band. I'm going to pull through everything and then make a nice and tight slip knot to tie that off. So we kind of made this oval shape, and then I'm going to just reach underneath some of the bands so I can take that loose band, or it's not exactly loose, but this loop, and I'm going to just pull it through and hide it in the back. And then what I'm going to do is just to take my safety eye, and right in the center of the magic ring, I'm just going to push that through. I still see this loop a little bit here, so I'll just pull that, fix that. And so you're just going to repeat that step again to make your second eye. Next, you'll need to decide the placement for your eyes. So if you find the center of your nose here, I would say go to about the third hole up from your magic ring. So this is the magic ring. So 1, 2, 3, and then if you look around here, there's like an opening just a little bit diagonally down, and then another one about diagonally up. So right about here is where I'm going to place my first eye. And then I'll do that again. So from that third space up, again, there's one a little bit diagonally down, and then one that's just a little bit more upward. So I'm going to put my eye in there. And then with the back here, if you have the safety eyes, you're just going to push that on. Make it nice and tight. And then you would do the same thing for the other side. Oops, I have it upside down there. Now, if you don't have safety eyes, you'll probably want to use a couple of white bands and get these on. Again, the same thing as when I made Dory. I feel like when you push these to make the safety eyes stick on really tight, it makes the white part kind of squish out. So if you didn't like that, you could loosen this or just not even use the back part. Probably not going to be able to do it very easily. There we go. And then you could just use your hook and go up from the inside, push out, push through a hole, and then grab a white loop. Make sure you're just grabbing one that's going to be less visible, like the inside. And then just take your white band, pull down through, and then just go to the next opening again, grab another white from the inside, and just pull that through to the back, and then just work your way around the circle here, and you can attach it that way. Now, another thing that you might want to do is to use a band or two and kind of gather the sides on the inside so that the eyes are a little bit more set in and the middle of the nose is a little bit more prominent. So what you would do is you kind of have to gather about where the eyes are. So if I just go under 1 or 2 loops here on either side, I know it's kind of a large gap here, but you need to have some distance in between just so it will gather inside. So I just lost it there. Let me just take this orange band, go under both, and I'll take this additional orange band and make a slip knot. So you can play around with how you think it looks. Obviously you don't want to make it buckle too much, but I think like a little bit just to make that ridge of the nose stick out. It just gives the face a little bit more of the Nemo look. In rows 13 and 14, they're going to be all orange, and you're doing just 1 single crochet into each stitch. So since that's pretty straightforward, I'm going to go ahead and let you do those on your own. I just want to remind you to be careful of your slip stitches, that you are not going into the first little part anywhere there was a slip stitch on the previous row. So just to be on the safe side, just make sure that your stitch count is 31 after each one of your rows. In row 15, you're going to need 24 orange and 6 black. So we're going to start with 8 orange. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we're doing 3 black, so do your slip stitch, and then 2 more, and now we're going to do 5 orange. So again, we need to do a slip stitch, so here's 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now the next 2 stitches are going together. So this is going to be our first decrease. So what you're going to do is skip your first stitch, go into your second stitch. We're just working in the 2 outer loops. So pick up that loop, pull back just slightly, and then push through the first outer loop. So it should look sort of like an X. The band should make an X on your hook. And then you just pull right through, and it's like a regular single crochet, the way one goes through the other 2. Now just make sure when you go into your next stitch, even though this may look like it's an empty stitch, it's being pulled because that was part of our decrease. So make sure you're going to that next one over, and we're going to do a total of 5. So here's 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we have 3 black again. So do your slip stitch. Here's 2, 3, and then that will leave us with 5 orange. So slip stitch in the first, 2, 3, 4, and then you're back at your clip. In row 16, we're going to do 2 decreases. So you need 18 orange, 6 black, and 4 white. So we're starting out with a decrease. So remember, you're ignoring the first. Go into the second, just the outer loop. Pull back so you can see your first stitch. Push straight through that first outer loop. So this one's orange. And then in the next stitch over, we have 4 more oranges to do in a row here, so that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're going under an orange stitch. We're going to pick up a black. So do your slip stitch. The next orange band here, or orange stitch, we're doing another black, and now we're going under the black stitch. Just be careful of your slip stitches. We're going to pull through a white band, do your slip stitch, and then under a black we have another white, so no slip stitches there, and then under black we're picking up a black. So you do the slip stitch. Next one, remember to ignore that first part. Now we're going to do a total of 4 oranges. So slip stitch. That was 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the next 2 stitches go together for a decrease. ignore the first, outer loop of the second, pull back, push straight through the outer loop of the first. And now we're going to do 4 more oranges. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going under an orange stitch. We're picking up a black band. Do your slip stitch. And now under a black stitch with a white band, do your slip stitch. And now we have another white under your last black stitch, switching to black, and now under an orange stitch for your last black. And that leaves us with 4 oranges. So slip stitch in the first, two, 3, and 4. So I know there's a lot of color changes, a lot of slip stitches, so just be careful. And if you notice like the bottom here is kind of puckered or buckly, don't worry about that, because once we add the stuffing, it's going to really smooth it out. In row 17, we're doing 2 more decreases, so you're going to need a total of 10 orange bands, 8 white, and 8 black. So we have 3 orange to start. These are just regular single crochets. And then we have an orange stitch with a black band. Do your slip stitch. Another orange with a black band. Next we have black, but we're doing a white stitch. Slip stitch, another black with a white band. We're going to do a total of 4. So now we have a white stitch with a white band. And then same thing again. This is our 4th white. And now we have 2 black. So we have a black stitch with a black band. Do your slip stitch. And now orange stitch with a black band. And then we have 2 orange, so slip stitch. Here's our second. And then we're at the top of the head here. We're going to do another decrease. So skip the first, pull back, push through. So our decreases should basically be lining up with one another. And now I have 2 more orange. So that's 1, 2. Now we're going to do under an orange stitch with a black band, slip stitch, under another orange stitch with another black band, under a black stitch. Now we're changing to white, so slip stitch. That was the first out of 4. Second one's going under a white stitch. Third under a white stitch. And the 4th one's going under black stitch, and it's our last white. Now we have a black stitch with a black band. Do a slip stitch. Under an orange stitch we have a black band, and then that leaves us with 1 orange that's getting a slip stitch, 2 more stitches. Let me just take out the clip. This one goes together for a decrease. So again, ignore the first, grab the second, outer loop, pull back, push through the first, and there's our decrease. So now I can just add my clip back on. So I think he's coming along nicely. In row 18 we have just 1 decrease, so you'll need 1 orange, 10 black, and 14 white. So we're starting with orange. Just make sure, since we did a decrease in that previous row, that you're going to the next one over, and then you're going to do a slip stitch because we're changing to black, orange stitch with a black band, and now we have a black stitch. We're going to do a total of 7 white, so slip stitch in the first, we have another black stitch for number 2, now we have a white stitch for number 3, four, 5, 6, and then the 7th white band is going under a black stitch. Next black stitch, we have a black band. Do your slip stitch. We have an orange stitch with a black band. And then the next 2 stitches go together for a decrease. So again, we're just working in the outer loops, and we're doing a black decrease. And then 2 more black stitches, or 2 more black bands I should say. They're going under orange. And then under a black stitch, we're going to start the white, do your slip stitch, and this is going to be another 7 white, so second one under a black stitch, third under a white stitch, four, 5, 6, and that 7th one is going under a black stitch. We have 3 black bands. First one under a black stitch, do your slip stitch, and then the last 2 stitches are orange and the bands are black. In row 19 you'll need 22 white and just 1 black. So we're starting under an orange stitch. This is our one and only black, and we don't have to do a slip stitch because we already had black on our hook. And now under the black stitch we're doing a white slip stitch. So we're going to do a total of 10 white. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you feel like there's any kind of gaps as you're forming this, it feels like there's a little bit of a gap right there, you can just pick up another band. As I said earlier, let me just take this one out. If you feel like there's a larger gap there, go under the stitch and then grab a loop of that same color. So grab a white loop and just pull through that, and that'll help close off any gaps. So this is number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then number 10 is going under a black stitch. And now we're doing a decrease with the white, so the next two are going together. And then we have 9 more white. So the first ones are under black stitches, and now we're switching to the white stitches, going under those. So this is number 7, 8, and then the 9th one is going under a white stitch. It's our last white stitch from the previous row. We have another decrease. So the decrease is going to be in the black stitches. Just be careful, ignore this first little part. So it's actually this one here, pull back, push through, and then last stitch is white under a black stitch. You'll need 22 bands for row 20, so you can see they're all white. So instead of laying them out, I just put them in piles. They are just single crochet. We're going to do 10 single crochet, then a decrease, and then 11 singles. So the first stitch we're going under is black. We don't have to do a slip stitch. Next one over. So we're going to do 10. This is number 2. 3. 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then we have our decrease. And then that leaves us with 11 single whites. So if you've made it this far, you should feel pretty proud of yourself. We really are probably at least halfway done by now. Definitely more than halfway done with the body. But then we're going to have to add the fins, so that's going to take a little bit more time. Have my last 3. Last 1. Now I'm going to add some stuffing before this starts to get too small. So I like to take smaller sections at a time. This is a pretty large opening. And you want to put it in and form the face to start. So down in the lower part of the mouth, you can basically just see where you think you need it to go. Behind the eyes. Now I don't want to push the eyes out too far because I did add that extra band to try and keep them a little bit more sunken in. So you just want to do your best to smooth it out. Any places along the body that sort of aren't quite smooth, you can use your stuffing and really get that to be nice and solid. In row 21, we're doing 2 more decreases, so you'll need 1 white and 19 black. So we're starting with 1 white, and then we're going to do 8 black. So I have my slip stitch. So that was 1, 2, 3. You have to try and keep the stuffing out of your stitches there. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now at the top here we have our decrease. And then coming around we have 8 more singles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Can't really see what I'm grabbing here. We have another decrease. And then finally, in the last stitch, we have 1 black. In row 22, we have 1 black and then 18 orange. So under the white stitch, we have a black. And then we're going to switch back to orange. So we do have to do that slip stitch. So that was number 1 out of 7 oranges that we're doing. So here's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Just lost that one. And then that brings us up to the top. We're doing a decrease. And this is going to be orange. And then we're going to work our way back. And we have 10 oranges left. So I'm not going to bother to count these. They're going to take you all the way back to the start. So this part should be pretty straightforward. The main thing you have to worry about is your stuffing. You can see I keep using my fingers and try to push it out of the way. Occasionally it does get stuck in there a little bit. You can see little pieces here and there. My Nemo's getting so big I can't really see the desk and see where my bands are to grab. Last one. You'll need 17 orange bands for row 23, and you can see we're doing 2 more decreases. So our first stitch is black, and then the rest are going to be going under orange. So we're going to do 7, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we have our decrease at the top. Just keep narrowing this fish body. And then we have another 7. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have a decrease here at the bottom. And finally a single. So we're really working it closed here. It's getting a lot smaller. In row 24, you're going to need 5 orange and 10 black. So our first one is an orange. And then we have 2 black. So do your slip stitch. Second black. And then we have 2 orange. So again, do your slip stitch. And then a second orange. Now we have 1 black. So do your slip stitch. We have a decrease that's black. Can't see what I'm doing. There we go. And then another black in the next stitch. And now we're switching back to orange, so do your slip stitch, then a second orange, and now again we're switching back to black. So we have 3 of those, so that's 1, 2, 3. We have a decrease at the bottom. And then finally, 1 more black. In row 25, you're going to need 7 black and 6 white. So we're starting in an orange stitch with a black band. And then we have a black stitch with a white band. So do your slip stitch, another black stitch with a black band, again another slip stitch, and then we have 2 more blacks, and they're both going under orange stitches. Now at the top here, the next stitch was a slip stitch, so just be careful about that. And the next 2 we're putting together for a decrease. So the more closed off this gets, the harder it is to kind of see where you're working. So this is actually going to be a white band, so that's got to pull through everything. And now the next stitch is black. We're doing a black band, slip stitch, 2 more orange stitches with black bands, now we have a black stitch. We're going to do a slip stitch with the first. Next stitch we have another white. Next two black go together for a decrease, and that's going to be with a white band. And last stitch is white. You'll need 13 white bands for row 26, and we're doing just one single crochet into each stitch. So your first stitch you're going under is black. Next stitch is white. And then we're going under 3 black stitches. So you don't have to worry about any color changing this row, so that's nice. Now we have a white that was a decrease in the last row. Now you're going under black stitches, coming down the other side. There's a white. And then back to the start. Now here's your last chance to add any additional stuffing, because in the next part we're going to completely close the body. So again, just smaller pieces at a time. You don't want to overfill it. Definitely don't want to see the stuffing in between the stitches, but you do want it to be pretty full, and make sure that your bands are nice and puffed out and smooth so you don't see any dimpling in your project. I think that looks pretty good. In row 27 you're going to need 7 black bands, so we're going to close off the end of the body. We're going to do 5 singles, and then we're going to do 2 in the last. So here's the end of Nemo. And what you're going to do is just squeeze this together, and you want to line up the white stitches. So we do have this loose band, whoops, just made that clip come off, that we are going to attach when we get to that part. So we do technically have 13 stitches, so there's one that's not going to be gone through, but we're going to make sure that's at the end. So when you squeeze these together, get them lined up. I'm going to start at the top of Nemo. So I'm going to go through a stitch, straight across, take my first black band, it's going to pull through both, and then pull one through the other. Just going to the next stitch down, straight across, again pull through, back on, and through the other two. Next one down on each side. And then in this next one, what I'm going to do is go through the stitch, and since the next one over has the loose band, I'm just going to pick that up on my hook and then go straight across, and I'm going to pull through. It's a little bit harder with that loose band, it's wanting to get caught up there. And now the one that we just connected, we're going to go through that, and straight across. And then the next one over. Technically here we have the 3 stitches. We're going to have that extra one. And we're going to do 2 single crochets into the end. So again, back through the same one. This time I'm going to try and get the black band a little bit over here. Just try and get it a little bit more spread out. So this is the end of part 1, and I am going to add the link here for you to click on that will take you to part 2. I hope that everyone loves their new Loomigurumi Nemos. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook. You can post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that way you can stay up to date on my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to post your pictures and comments there too. I always love to see what everyone's creating and what your thoughts are. And if you do post a picture on Instagram, don't forget to tag me. Thanks for watching!